Hello there. I'm Squire Callahan Ridgeborn, almost a battle master, definitely a wizard, and tonight I am joined by Sargon Drin, a Paragon Healer and Master Rose. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Callahan. It's a great privilege to be on this show.
I want to just jump right on into it. How long have you been playing Amtgard?
Sometime in May, it'll be 10 years. Although I've had a couple years of being in and out when I lived in different kingdoms and I had different jobs that basically made me work weekends almost every time. So there's long gaps where I was out of the game altogether. But
Okay,
effectively 10 years, if starting, I think, May 1st.
cool. Okay. How long of that have you been playing Healer for?
I've been playing for the better half since I started 2016, but I didn't really get serious until I came back in 2019. That's
Okay.
when I was starting to play it more regularly and start focusing on one class rather than just play a class for maybe 6 weeks and then switch to a new class. So every class was at least second level.
All right. Um, what makes Healer special to you? What makes you really excited to play the class?
So healer for me is essentially the quintessential midline combatant. We're not going to be the frontliners like say a warrior or a paladin because we don't have armor and we don't have quite as big a roster for equipment options. But we're also not backline fighters like say archers or bow assassins or bow druids. We are the glue that keeps the team together. We make sure that our teammates in the front get their gear mended up regularly, they get released, they get resurrected, so that the team doesn't get stampeded on. But we also have some decent CC that can help make sure that the backline doesn't get routed by, say, a really good assassin or a group of players using, say, circle protection.
Okay. So you started playing healer. You said five. Back in 2019. That's pretty good time ago. How long did it take you to get your Paragon?
It took me till, let's see, 2023. Basically, it was a good chunk of just leveling up the class, and then I managed to hit 6 level right before I moved back to Rising Winds at the beginning of 2020. So I didn't get real serious about trying it till late 2021. And then the majority of that grind to gain to Paragon was 2022 when I was going to basically every event you could go to and then working out like a madman about 5 to 6 times a week, usually doing cardio.
Okay. What did that training regimen look like?
So I'm going to give credit to Barade Greed Shen, who is a Paragon bard and archer, and he basically gave me his rundown that he would go on a 3 mile run of some sort, and he would just every minute get at least one of his spells or the charging can't shouted out for the entire run, so that he could build both better cardio for breathing and then also for better situational awareness. So I took that to heart and would do at least 30 minutes, and for the longest time would do an hour straight of just naming off one of 3 to 5 spells or 2 to 4 spells plus the charging can.
Hmm.
So it would help one with getting better breath control because if you're going to do a caster class, especially one like healer, you need to build endurance because it is easy to get cotton mouth at the end of the first day of a 3 to 5 day event. No one wants that to happen.
Yeah.
The second thing is also it helped me get better at doing ambient casting because I found it personally that once you can start doing ambient casting, a lot of people struggle with balancing, walking and talking at the same time
Hmm.
effectively in the heat of battle. And then the last part was to ensure better situational awareness. So that if, say, some enemies started approaching you, say, a pole arm or sword and board, I wouldn't freeze up or start, fumbling my incants. Because no one's going to take any spell incant if they can't understand what you're saying.
Absolutely. Okay. That's a pretty good training regiment there. Are you still running 3 miles a day?
Not 3 miles. I do usually about an hour. So it could be 3 miles. It might be less, but I try to go on some kind of so some kind of a cardio machine. So usually a treadmill, an elliptical, maybe an e-bike, and then have the same set to like an incline of 15 degrees so that I'm moving up a decent sized hill, but then also change it for like 4 to 5 on the rating for the first 4 minutes, and then that last minute bumping up an extra whole set to like say 6. So I'm just running further just so you can build up that cardio.
Okay. So you do a lot of midline healing. You're behind the front line, not all the way on the back line. What is it you're looking for in that midline? What is your happy place over there?
So my main happy place is working with the frontliners and giving them all their best enchantments. Specifically, I'm in the Mystic Falcons fighting company, so a good chunk of the members are people I've known since high school when we all play D&D all the time. So we just know how to play this game like we play D&D.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So specifically a guy like, say, Severish, Steve Fetzko, I was always usually working with him as a caster in our D&D games, and he would play a knight or a paladin. So just giving it a chance is just second nature.
You guys have gotten a lot of tabletop experience that's translated to good fields chemistry.
Oh, yeah, for the better half of 18 years.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
That is a lot of history there.
yeah. All the original members of the Emerald Glades, the park I'm originally from back in Medina, Ohio, all started off as people who grew up in the same town and went to the same high school. So a lot of us know each other for about 4 or 5+ years on average.
Cool. Okay. What is the minimum gear I need to play healer successfully?
So obviously everyone can have a dagger. So that's always something good to have, even if you're not a good stick fighter like myself. As for what you want to go with, always have at least a set of 5 white, yellow, and red strips. Even if you don't use them, just have them for your teammates to use is always good to have, because you can't really be an effective assassin if you don't have the spell strips needed to do poison, for example. As for your builds, it kind of depends. If you want to do, sword and board combat, absolutely go for it, especially if you're going to play necromancer, because your undead minions need to count on you to stay alive for as long as possible. So having some equipment really helps you.
Mm-hmm.
As for the basics, heal is always mandatory because you get unlimited uses. So why would you ever take that down? Having at least 2 releases and maybe 1 great release is always good to have. Same thing with at least 2 mends, because even if you don't use your own gear, just being able to mend someone else's gear is always a great idea to have. Same with having 2 resurrects minimum, and also have at least 1 greater resurrect and at least 1 greater release, because greater release is my personal MVP spell that's a refresh, just because of how many jams it can get you out of.
Okay.
But as far as what individual spells per build, we can discuss that all night long, because every single archetype has its own unique challenges, because each build is going to restrict you from, say, certain spells.
Sure. So a lot of times when I'm going into like this upcoming March event, I've been looking at the games ahead of time. I've been tailoring my spell lists specifically to each game. Do you do that as well?
I try and do a mixture of that, because I do like to try and have a list of, okay, I know the 3 things I always ask for what I do in my spell list are, who in my team is going to show up at the event, because the Best of Falcons doesn't always have all members. Sometimes it might be 4 or 5. So I want to make sure I know who I'm going to be teaming with. And then obviously, what's the game objective? Is it going to be a simple, kill the other side entirely? Or is it we got to, hold a base for this long? Or we have to complete X amount of scenarios and get this many points? And then the last part is, what's the environment like? Are we going to be inside? Are we going to be outside? Is it going to be just an open field? Or is there going to be plenty of, foliage or man-made obstacles that block line of sight?
Okay. Very fair. So for look the part, how can healers get look the part without and avoiding generic like caster
without looking like
things?
without looking like a priest?
Yeah, like if I don't want to dress up like a Catholic priest and walk around in a big old bishop hat. How can someone get look the part looking like a healer without going for like a bit?
If you want to, I mean, you could just dress up in just basic medical scrubs, because those are the bare minimum accepted garb across the game. So
Mm-hmm.
you could always just, patch it up and make yourself look like a doctor. You could also dress up, kind of dress up as a little scientist or maybe a plague doctor if you have that old plague mask that a lot of people were buying during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the rest of the garb, because we're Amtgard, we're not a strict Western fantasy RPG. You can pretty much dress up as whatever you want as long as it doesn't look modern.
Right.
So if you want to dress like a monk, you can totally dress like a monk and still get looked apart as long as you look like you're someone who has some medical experience.
Okay.
But for me, I usually try to keep it a little comfy, so I'll usually have a red, tunic of sorts, maybe some black or red pants of some sort, and then I'll have a whole list of just various spell strips on me. So I'm not hardcore on look the part, but there are more options than just dress up like a priest of, say, Bahamut from D&D.
Is there any part of the healer kit that is useless?
Honestly, since we opened up Paladin, Anti-Paladin to the greater public,
Mm-hmm.
some of the lower crowd control spells like Hold Person are kind of obsolete because, okay, that's good at second level, but once you get to higher stuff, it really doesn't hold much of a candle unless you're playing against your normal enemies.
Right. Okay. So let's get into some battle gaming specific questions. If you're going into a generic kingdom level field, you don't really know what's going to be going on there. What's your default spell list going to look like? Do you have a particular archetype you lean towards?
If I'm going in blind, I'm going to do a basic priest build just because being able to do, heal, release, mend, greater release, greater resurrect, repeat is always a safe option. But I would also recommend try and find your own balance of, say, getting equipment. So you could take a short shield or a medium shield or a short sword or a hinged weapon,
Mm-hmm.
as part of your optional equipment as a healer. Or you can always get a decent variety of crowd control. It might not be as vast as, say, druid or wizard because we don't have, say, finger of death or call lightning, but we do have stun, we have abeyance, we have ice ball, we have one of my go-to crowd controls is banish, which is a first level spell.
Mm-hmm.
That is a fantastic ability to just basically do your own version of tracking from the scout list.
Right. Well, I would even argue that banish is more useful than tracking because it makes them go home and then come
Oh
back.
yeah.
And I think it demoralizes the assassins a little bit because
Yeah.
normally they go back to base, they get all their insubs back. This time they're just like, okay.
Yeah, just that is a fantastic first level spell to purchase for almost any given build. Just
Absolutely.
because of that. Also, Sever Spirit's really good because it's a lower level spell, but it is able to curse a player once
And
they're
it
dead.
will
So,
strip enchantments off them too.
yep, that is a fantastic lower level crowd control spell to go with if you don't want to, say, throw ice balls or abeyance.
Sure. Where do you spend your experiences on?
Usually, if I'm going to do, say, Warder, which is my go-to, I'm probably going to do a greater release just because I always want to have the ability to, say, charge up since it's a refresh.
Mm-hmm.
And getting that ability to release someone from 20 feet away is such a great get out of jail card, especially if, say, the battlefield becomes a murder box.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
Um, Otherwise, I would if I'm doing, say, a priest build, I'm gonna do lots of men because it is real common to just spend half the battle just get behind someone and just doing the men in cant ad nauseum.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I had a follow-up question for you about the greater release. Have you personally ever greater released someone out of elemental barrage or fight after death?
I have done it for Five to Death. I've done it 2 times. One was at Keep, and I just want to say the other one was at a June event about 2 years ago. I want to say. Never done it for Elemental Barrage. I've never, to my memory, have ever gotten that opportunity to do it to someone in Elemental Barrage. But I have done it against people in Fight or Death.
I always see people like, oh yeah, and you can, greater release them out of those things. I'm like, well, yeah, you can, but
Should you?
practically, like, I mean, how often does that actually come into play? And so I was curious if you'd have been seeing a lot of that. So, okay.
Not too often, but the times I've done it, it is a great help.
So what would make you switch it up and go to like a necromancer list? What kind of game are you looking for to be doing necromancer?
If we're doing something like a King of the Hill or node capture game where you have to hold an objective for X amount of time to get points, absolutely go for it. Just because, all right, I give say 2 or 3 undead minions. I would say 2 is the minimum. If you can get 3, because you can get the most bang for your buck from that,
Mm,
and just have them go fight, but make sure they're within eyesight of you at all times so that they can get back to you as soon as possible. And you just stand by and just hold that objective with maybe another person or two sticking by.
okay.
Otherwise, an RP given quest, so say Night Quest, is a really good one just because you can win by war of attrition.
Okay. You can afford to grind through the enemy armor by just throwing bodies at it.
Yep, yep. Or if not throwing bodies, I have found using say circle protection or teleport has managed to make a great loophole for complete objectives that isn't just kill everyone.
Okay. Yeah, can you tell me a little bit more about Circle of Protection? How are you using that? Like, it feels like a spell that should be doing a lot, but I don't feel like it does a lot.
It's one of those spells that, because of the nature of it, that require that you can take up to 5 willing people. You have to have a decent sized group of people who are willing to go along with it. You don't want it to be just, hey, it's me and like 2 people. You're just wasting that spell. And if you're going to use it, you want it to be in a situation where you can get to, say, the other side of the field and then just flank the enemy team or get across a hazard zone and complete an objective.
Okay. Are you able to
So
move
it's a
while in Circle of Protection?
no, you may not move from the starting location, and you are unaffected by abilities that allow or require you to move.
Okay. So how
Yeah,
are you
because it's just
getting across? Because I was pretty sure you can't move in Circle of Protection. How are you moving people across
they
to
have to be
use?
within touch range. So they have to be within touch range. So it can't be, say, everyone is just going off in their own direction, like it's say Halo or Call of Duty.
Right.
Yeah,
So you're
it's
you're
one of those
basically
spells that,
using it as a fallback for when people start paying attention to your flanking group then.
yep. Or if say
Okay.
you are about to get swarmed and you just got to get out.
Okay, I got you then.
Yeah, so it is definitely one of those emergency, hit break the glass spells.
Certainly. What do you think the best spell that healer gets is?
Oh, I mean, Greater Resurrect is god tier, but for one that's really kind of unique to them early on, Greater Release, because of the fact you get it so early on that you can, it's something you need to use if you want to say break someone who's been cursed to Greater Resurrect, but also, as I mentioned before, if you're at a good distance away and the battlefield is just a murder box or some enemy or two is just camping that has gear that you can't get past, like say if you're dead and cursed by an anti-paladin or an assassin and they've got a good set of equipment and I've got just a dagger or maybe a small shield,
Hmm.
I'm not going to try and take my chances and fight them through to bring you back. I'm just going to get you from afar and bring you over
Makes sense.
or break you out of the state.
Yeah. Okay. What do you think the worst spell that healer gets is?
As far as CC, hold person really just doesn't hold up anymore like it used to.
Hmm.
Like it's okay at a lower level, but it really doesn't give you that much, bang for your buck anymore.
Yeah. I remember back before Paladin and Anti-Paladin were open to everybody, and that makes me sound old and curmudgeonly, but like
Likewise.
back in the olden days when I was a kid, whole person used to mean something, you know? Like
Right.
all your marshals were either barbarians or warriors, and that was really all you had, right? I mean, you had some
Yeah.
scouts out there, but for the most part, people played barbarian or warrior, and if they did scout, at least out where I was, it was kind of like a meme of like, oh, are you doing archery? Are you just, you couldn't make up your mind, so you went with scout. And so half the people had command immunity, but it didn't feel like half the people did, because warriors were more common, I would say, than barbarians were, because you get more armor points, and now with paladin and anti-paladin being opened up, it provides a middle tier of armor and also command immunity, so it feels like
Mhm.
it's skewed the other way, where command immunity is significantly more prevalent than it used to be.
Oh yeah, and I'm not trying to make a dig against paladins and anti-paladins. I like the classes, and I'm glad that they're open up to non-knights now, rather
Oh,
than
I think
you
they're
can
super
only be a
fun.
knight. Oh yeah, they're absolutely fun, but it does kind of sting seeing that roughly a third of all the player classes are now immune to one school of command, effectively.
Yeah, and this is something I've talked about previously on the channel. I would rather see some diversity in immunities out there, because just even playing as a caster class, like, everybody's immune to command, so I don't bother to buy command spells. And if there was
Right.
more diversity of immunities out there, then it would require more decision making, and I argue higher skill from your
Oh yeah.
casters, instead of just, oh, this spell's useless.
Yeah, like making one of the paladin or anti-paladin have their command be replaced by, say, subdual or sorcery would be a really nice welcome change.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of giving them anybody pro sorcery, just because that
Yeah, yeah.
shove is
Just,
such an
but
important spell for low level casters.
yeah, shove is a great universal spell because it's a quick get out of jail card.
I kind of feel that paladin and anti paladin do not need pro command to maintain their relevance.
Yeah,
Paladin
yeah,
gets pro death, which is already really strong. Anti paladin has pro
yeah.
flame. Give warrior. So if you gave warrior pro command and took it away from barbarian, and then made barbarian immune to the frozen state in general,
Okay.
so now you have four different immunity stats that you're looking at for very specific use cases. And so frozen is your big problem. You hate being frozen, you'll play barbarian. If you're tired
Oh,
of being,
absolutely.
being commanded all the time, you'd go to warrior. And death and flame follow along. So you get, I think, a greater diversity on the field with immunities. But that's a different video. I already talked about that in my kill combos wizard video, so I won't rehash that too much. Now that I've completely thrown us off the bandwagon.
Oh, it's totally fair. Like it does make gameplay a little bit more interesting if it's not just one whole spell group can just be wholesale negated right out of the gate.
Right. Well, and I think it also leads to stagnation in spell lists. Like, you don't have to make as many decisions, because the best spells are the best spells and they're just always the best, right?
Right.
Like, there's a reason we have so many Icy Blast Shatter wizards out there, because no one's immune to Icy Blast Shatter. There's
Right.
and I'm certain that there's stuff going like that in the healer list where, uh, you know, if we changed up some of those things, it would lead to less sameness in casters, and that's something I don't think we can solve here and now, but a conversation I'm hoping to foster more of out there.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah. Getting back to our questions, you're a healer. How can I defeat you if I am a rival melee fighter?
Okay, so if you want to defeat me, really try and go, say, a great weapon or go with a really good sword and board combo. If you're going to go in melee, if you're doing it as a caster, get plenty of, say, suppression or get dispel magic, because as a warder, which is my main go-to build, being able to just dispel a lot of my enchanted players just can take the wind out of my team's sails.
Okay. How vulnerable to archery do you think healers are in general?
It's 50-50. Like for someone like myself, I'm a little more vulnerable because I usually, if I'm playing warder, I'm not going to put much points into, say, equipment, because I'm
Mhm.
trying to get the most amount of enchantments and probably some decent resurrects and mends in there. But if I'm doing, say, a sword and board as, say, a combat priest or a necro, you could do some pretty good damage, especially if, say, there's no one around who can enchant me.
Okay. Okay. Um, I'm gonna throw you a curveball now. Do you think that Greater Resurrect should be moved down to level 4 so you could experience it?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say no because it's such a powerful spell,
Mhm.
especially for my given build. Because oh, what's that? I can now experience a spell that can keep my players who got cursed to keep their persistent, say, imbue shield or lighten soul. That could be real game breaking in the wrong hands.
Okay.
But if it happened, I wouldn't complain. But I also don't have a problem with keeping it as is.
Okay. Are there any spells on the healer list that you feel are misleveled? Maybe they should get moved around?
Hmm. Right now, not really. I mean, the closest I could think of may be, Blessed Aura, but it's one of those spells I don't use that often because the few times I've put in my list, it didn't really go that far at all, or no one wanted to take it.
Okay. I'm unfamiliar with Blessed Aura. Can you tell me which one that is?
So Blessed Aura is going to actually be right here is
Okay.
a fifth spell. So the gist of it is that basically the wearer is going to be resistant to all effects from the next source that would inflict a wound, death state, or negatively affect them. So basically, if someone tried to say stun you or do Finger of Death, just nope. Yeah, so it's basically a greater version of blessing against wounds, or I want to say a protective spell.
Okay. But it is
So
only the
basically,
next one thing that would trigger off
yeah,
of that.
but it basically fills out everything.
Right. Healer is traditionally a support class. You do a lot of supporting. Is there anything that other players can do to support their healer friends?
Oh, battery bard, just being able to constantly keep your healer charged so they can do, mends and release and such. That is fantastic. Especially at bigger events like say Keep on the Borderlands or Bridge Wars. Being
Mhm.
able to just constantly keep your healer charged so they can make sure the front line doesn't get wiped out is essential.
Okay. Is there anything else that non-bards can do to help out?
Non-bards, I mean, you can always do with say druids. Being able to do essence graft is fantastic because that is helping many times in really tough, say, quest games to stay alive where players could just rush me and just wipe me out.
Hmm.
Especially with, say, Iron Skid or even Flame Blade. Even though I'm not a great player, as far as skill goes, being able to have a flame blade with just a dagger just really brings the fear of God into some people.
I think that's kind of hysterical.
Oh yeah, just sometimes you have to just go for just the silliest builds, just like you do in D&D.
Yeah. Just flame blade on a dagger. I really wish
Yeah.
that it passed 24-inch daggers. I hope they revisit that and it comes back around.
Oh, that or you know what? A void touch is also really good from a wizard.
Mm. Okay, yeah, getting that steel life essence unlimited can be really beneficial for any caster.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
But it depends on what your build is because you could ask me and the Paragon healers that came before me that I learned from, like say Twilis or Magal or Ash, and we could all give any new player our own different lists, and none of them work for the player.
Right. Because
Right?
you got to really build your own list. You can't just
Yeah,
steal someone else's and go for it.
yeah. I kind of attribute to say as an engineering major, trying to teach someone physics. You can give them the answers all day and all night, but if they don't apply and learn the actual theory and practice it themselves, they're never going to learn.
Okay.
Just like you could give a warrior, 6 points of armor, a tower shield, and a pole arm. If they don't practice and learn that, they're never going to be good.
Yeah. Practice makes perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Um, can you share with me some of your specific targets and some like tactics? So how do you decide who you're going to heal first? Walk me through your triage process, I guess.
Okay, so usually it depends on, say, what the objective is, because some battle games, I'm just, giving out my enchants like candy right out of the gate. There are times I'm going to wait for like the first minute or two to see, like, okay, what's the objective looking? How are we doing on the left side? How are we doing on the right side? Are we just stuck in a complete grind? And also, like, who's lasting the longest without any work? And then who just keeps, dying like a red shirt from Star Trek right
Mhm.
out of the gate every time? So for people like, say, Severish, or if I'm, say, working with my old crew from Emerald Glades, like, say, Ten, I'm probably going to give some decent enchants for, say, maybe Enlightened Soul, or if they're going to go with Sword Board, I'm probably going to start off with, say, Greater Harden rather than Imbue Shield, because Imbue Shield is one of those enchants that will just get dispelled right out of the gate if I just
Right.
give it right out of the gate. As for crowd control, I'm going to look around and check for any assassins. If they're starting to just run around, I'm just going to banish them like it's no tomorrow.
Okay.
As for other kinds of combat, if I'm going to do any kind of combat casting, I'm going to have a shield. Probably going to get a medium one just so I can at least deflect for a moment rather than just be out in the open.
Makes sense. Okay. Um, Shifting gears a little bit, what advice would you give someone who is just starting out as healer? Maybe they're already
Excellent.
level 6 and they want to take it up to Paragon. Maybe they're leveling healer right now. What advice would you give to someone in one of those boats?
Kind of similar to what Toby stated at the beginning. Do try and memorize your spell list by heart, because you don't want to go on the field and like, oh god, what do I do? And just stop it and look at your phone for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you want to try and get a few basic core ones. So obviously get your heal, get at least 2 releases, get at least 1 greater release, get at least 2 mends and 2 resurrects and a greater resurrect. Because regardless of your build, those are always universally good to have in your list. I would also say probably have some combination, or at least go really heavy into, say, sword and board for equipment, or go real heavy into, say, crowd control. So spell balls, verbal crowd controls. Try and have a decent mix. So if, say, your enchantments aren't going to do a whole lot this time, or your necromancy isn't going to do a whole lot, at least you have something to fall back on rather than just heal ad nauseum.
Okay. So leaning into the ways that your list is moving instead of trying to be everything, really leaning into one thing and being good at that.
Yes, yes. I prefer to go when I was working on my way to becoming a paragon, I would explicitly keep working on the archetypes, because it then, as a healer, removed certain amounts of spells that I could use for my list. So you had to get, instead of, say, all 20, 30 spells, you only have, like, say, 10 or 15. So you have to know them and know how to use them in as many ways as possible.
I gotcha. By taking those archetypes and their limitations, it forced you to become better at what was still there.
Yeah, you had to really learn to build your spell list in the most economical way possible. And the same goes for every other, caster. So bard, druid, wizard. I look more for in someone I'm considering for, say, becoming a paragon, is how effective are they as a caster rather than how good of a spell list they have. Because you could come up with 20 spells on your list as a healer, like you do as a wizard. It doesn't mean anything if you can't even use half of them in a battle
Right.
consistently.
Okay. So what are some of the other things you look for in a potential Paragon healer?
The other things I look for are exceptional communication skills, because you may be the only person who knows that, say, the assassin or two is getting right around behind us and is getting ready to flank us, or say there's a combatant that's about to, say, take our flag or take our base. So you need to communicate as to what's going on, and also to make sure that, hey, I'm out of, say, Greater Resurrects at the moment. I need the other healer or maybe someone else to resurrect this person who's been cursed.
Okay.
Or, say, for example, if you're out of men's, you need someone who can, charge you. The other thing is also, situational awareness. You may not be the only person who knows what's going on. Don't assume everyone else knows it, whether it's an open field or a closed field.
Stepping away from healer a little bit, what is something that you say is a characteristic of someone that will be a paragon someday? Not specifically to healer, but like in general.
Communication and situational awareness. Always be aware of your surroundings, because you might be the only person on your side who notices, say, this player is getting real close,
Mhm.
and you might know that that any player might have some enchantments on them that no one else is noticing. Or in the case of communications, always let people know that, hey, I'm okay. Like, don't use this men on me. I've got like 4 more, points of armor as a warrior or a paladin, for example.
Okay.
Like, it's great to keep your armored players at full points, but don't go right out of the way. Sometimes you gotta wait until they're out of gas.
Okay. So when I'm playing wizard, my arch enemy class, if you would, are the monks out there. Does healer have an arch enemy class?
Oh man, wizards, because of how often they dispel. Even just doing I command these suppressed gives you a 10-second window of opportunity to make me useless in spellcast.
Okay. So for
Yeah.
you specifically, that dispel magic being rechargeable is really a nasty counter, and then the suppression on top of that just adds more to it, right?
Oh yeah. It also helps that I at BFP have plenty of paragons to play with who are really good crowd controllers. So like Magal and Narsh, and then Juicy and Zoc can just make me negate with just one spell.
So, as a paragon, something that you have the right to do, you're able to take apprentices. Is that something you've done historically? Is that something you see yourself doing in the future?
I do have an apprentice now. Granted, she did just move out of Kingdom and is now in the Kingdom of the Wetlands. She is Lady Squire Arya Loki's daughter. She is one of, I want to say, Grommel's squires.
Okay. What do you
Yeah,
look for
but
when you're selecting a potential apprentice?
when I look for someone as a apprentice, I want to see someone who has the potential, but is also, more than anything else, willing to learn. If you're willing to actually learn, that is far more important than if I think you're already good.
Okay.
Because there's no point in trying to teach someone who's always good if they think they already got figured out and they know more than you.
We're down to our final 2 questions. The first of our final 2 questions is, are you okay with people coming up and talking shop with you at events?
Absolutely. That's something that I feel anyone who wants to become a paragon or a master or a knight should be used to in some capacity. Now, that doesn't mean, say, if you're in the middle of eating a meal or you're going to the restroom, you need to just drop everything and do. But if you're just out in the field, just shooting the hay, yeah, feel free. Like, you want me to give you some tips and pointers on making a better spell list, or just helping you learn better theory as a caster, absolutely. I will be happy to do it any time of the week.
And finally, do you have any final recommendations for all of our healer friends out there before we go?
Oh, so basically the one thing is try and keep your scope a little limited at first. So try and work on just the basics and then build on it, but operate based on your own personal feel. Some people can do sword and board, and I will absolutely recommend they always go for it. Our people, you gotta just keep experimenting.
All right. Well, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe for more Amtgard Battle Gaming content. If you have any questions for Sargon, please post them down in the comments. We're always excited to get questions for our interviewees. Thank you so much for being here. We couldn't do this without you.
Thank you so much, Calhan. It's my pleasure.
Awesome. We will see everybody in the next video. Thank you for watching.